All right, so welcome everyone. Today I'm excited. This is the first show of 2020 with Coffee with Sal. So just want to welcome everyone. And before I introduce my special guest here, just want to tell you a little bit about today's show. It's going to be mainly about uh, the industry of real estate. So that's what the show will be mainly about. So want to welcome Jeremy here, Williams. How's it going, Jeremy?
It's going well, Salvador. Thank you for the opportunity and being able to be on your show today. Saying you're in the Woodlands, my office is based over here in Kingwood, Texas. Spent part of my career over there working in the Woodlands, so quite familiar
Awesome.
with the area and feel like you're almost next door.
Right. Good. Well, today on the Coffee with Sal here, Jeremy, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into coaching, or you kind of go from there? We can start there.
I'm not going to take you all the way back to when I was born because that would just get boring. So we'll go back when I decided to make the entry into real estate, which was back in 2004.
Okay.
And I went in as a sales professional and I sold for 6 years and had a great business based over here in the Kingwood area. And then had the opportunity through various doors that opened to step into leadership roles. One of those being a productivity coach with a company called Keller Williams, where I initially started my sales career. And so I started a leadership role. I spent a couple of years over in the Memorial area working with that office, then spent a couple of years working in the Woodlands office, and then eventually came back to the Kingwood office and served there for about 3 years before taking on a role as a regional director for a large expansion group based out of Portland, Oregon, run by Cody Gibson. And spent about 6 months there, and then we had the little storm Harvey that came along and dumped 52 inches of rain on us. And at that point, a majority of my people were impacted by that flood. So I had to make a decision whether to keep doing what I was doing or to do what I've been doing since 2010, and that was coaching up real estate agents and small business owners. So 2017, I made the decision to launch Red Hawk Coaching, and that's what I do today, is I help people build their businesses.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you shared that with me. So you mentioned real estate. Is that your niche, or are you mainly, where does the majority of your coaching business come from?
The majority of my business is the real estate industry. I've got a few different programs that target real estate agents, including a group coaching program. I've got one-on-one coaching. I recently launched a coaching program for brokers and office managers that are looking to grow their businesses and their agents. I do coach small businesses. I'm sorry?
Is that this year? It's a new program that you mentioned?
That program is a new program, and I'm really excited about that. Already got a couple brokers that are signed up with me and that I'm working with, and that's the interest, to make more money by attracting the right agents, to retain their talent, to build that culture of productivity, and most importantly, to help them develop as a leader. And outside of that, I do coach other small businesses. I coach insurance, I coach mortgage. I've coached transaction coordinators. Yet my focus and my primary niche is real estate, just because that's where I've lived since 2000.
Okay, so you're comfortable in that space.
Yes.
That's awesome. So going here into 2020, we're excited. Us as business owners, we're excited to get into the year. There's so much information out there as far as, setting goals, what to project here for our business in 2020. What would you say would be the first approach as far as first week of January, second week of January, as far as setting goals and what perspective would you share there?
I think January's starting a little late. If agents are watching this, my recommendation is really to start back in October. And being in the real estate industry, your business is 30, 60, and 90 days out. If you don't have a business plan, that'd be the first step that I would take is get those goals established. What specifically are the areas you're going to target? And I would target no more than 3 different areas in your business to target, and then create some strategies for each one of those. Yet, if you haven't started on that, that'd be the first place I would start, is get those goals established as priority areas and the strategies, so that you can go out and make 2020 successful. Where I see agents fail are those that just don't have a plan, and you got to have a plan in place.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? So you're saying things to avoid. So what would you say for real estate agents would be kind of some of the things to avoid for 2020? Because you mentioned where they, fail there.
Yeah, I think the things that need to avoid is trying to do everything. I also train in offices, and so I go out and I have interactions with a lot of agents, and it's amazing, seeing the mindset of the agents that are out there and all the opportunities. There's tons and tons of opportunities, and what happens is agents will say, "I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that," and so they're doing like 8 or 9 or 10 different things,
That's
and they're trying to be everything to everyone, and that just doesn't seem to work. You hear that phrase, "The riches are in the niches."
yeah,
And so getting hyper focused on two, maybe three things specifically in your business. If you're an individual agent, if you have a team of agents, you might be able to bump that up to 5 or 6 different things, but you can't do everything and do them really well.
makes sense. Makes sense. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, as far as sometimes we as small business owners, we bump in the wall and we're like, sometimes we have those good days, bad days, like everyone else. But one of the things I want to, what would be some motive? Are you coaching a lot of mindset, or is it more strategies as far as, can you share a little bit about that as far as mindset? Where do we need to be in 2020?
Yeah, so my mindset's absolutely important. I coach a lot in the area of mindset, and I coach a lot in the area of action. So if you want to think of the coaching wheel, which starts with programming, how we've always been thought or raised, what's programmed us leads to our thinking, thinking leads to our feelings, feelings lead to actions, action leads to results, results either reinforce that programming or it changes that. So you can start on any place in that wheel, and depending on the coaching client I have, sometimes we spend a little bit more time on action.
Oh,
Sometimes we spend more time on the mindset. And as far as motivation, I thought I might have heard you say motivation. I'm not really big on motivating
okay.
because motivating is really temporary.
Yep.
We've got to be able to look within ourselves and find that ability from within to go out and take action. And sometimes it's just our mindset that gets in the way. We can be our own worst enemy, and we know exactly what to do, yet we choose not to do it. And sometimes that comes from fear, and that could be fear of failure, that could be fear of success, and more often than not, it's fear of success.
Yeah.
And so it really depends on the situation that the agent's in. Sometimes I feel like taking action is the best result, or the best diagnosis or prescription for that diagnosis, because if I can get them to go take action on something and realize, okay, maybe they're focused on door knocking, but they're afraid to knock on the doors. Well, just go knock on 10 doors and see what happens. And they come back and they're like, that really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And so sometimes taking the action versus the mindset will get them going because they can get results, and those results then feed back into the programming and gets them to think differently and feel differently about it.
I see. I see. And do you have any maybe like a good book? Because I'm trying to also, I love to read. One of the things is I usually try to, a couple of books throughout the year. But what would you say would be a good book for uh, as far as, to take in 2020?
Oh, wow. There's a bunch out there.
Mhm.
Here's one thing I'll say before I give you the book name is this is from my coach. As a coach, I believe in coaching so much that as a coach, I should have a coach. And we had this conversation, in fact, about 3 months ago on the topic of reading. And we should be reading because it's what we need in our life at that time. Maybe it's a specific area we need growth in, and not reading just to read. The reason being is that if we read just to read, we could read a whole lot of books. And I've made this mistake before where I just read. And then it's like, okay, well, Jeremy, what did you actually implement out of that book? And then I'm like, okay, was that from that book, or was that from that book? So when you read, I'm bigger on take that same book and read it 12 times in a year. You don't need to read 100 different books. Just make sure it fits what you're looking for, what you need in your life or in your business at that time. The book that I'm reading right now, or just wrapped up, is Today Matters by John Maxwell. Love that book. It talks about, it's important to have goals, but you don't want to get so far out in your business or you're thinking every day that you're not paying attention to the things that need to be happening today. You do need to go set the goals and then work yourself backwards to what needs to happen in a day to be able to keep you on that path. And you also don't want to go spend a lot of time in the past. It's already happened. It's already been booked
Yeah.
and you can't change it. It is what it is. The only time you should go back to the past is if you're looking for a learning opportunity. Where did I make a mistake? Where could I have done better? That sort of thing. But you can't go dwell and stay there because it doesn't matter anymore. What really happens is, matters is what happens today. And if we focus on today and focus on those small victories and they add up over time, we'll be, 5 years down the road, we'll be somewhere we couldn't even imagine to have been
Yeah.
because we just took the time to focus on what matters today. And what I've found too in that book is just being more present. And, I think that's a big thing in our world today with all the distractions, all the technology, everything that's going on, all the noise you're probably experiencing it within your industry
Yeah.
is just being present. And I think that's good from a business perspective. I think it's also good from the personal perspective and our relationships with our wives and our husbands and our kids and our friends and our church and all those other things. I think is just as important.
Makes sense.
Probably more important. Not probably is more important.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing that, Jeremy. Now, what happens in those times when, let's say, how would you handle, or how would you recommend to handle when you're having great weeks, but then all of a sudden, it's just stagnant. It starts, you get that in that rut, and you're like, how would you handle that?
Well, I think when you get in those places, I think it's okay to have that moment. You just can't stay there. They talk about the progression through grief and those types of things. You can be there for that moment. It's okay. We're human beings. We're emotional beings. Go through that, but you can't stay there. You just have to pick yourself up and say, and it's a choice at that point. I could either stay there or I can choose to move forward and go after my goals and not allow this to be a setback. Maybe look at it as a learning experience. Like I don't believe in failure. I believe in learning experiences. So we don't fail, we just learn. And so, looking at it as a learning experience, being able to at that point choose and making sure that our choice is in alignment with our goals. If we sit there and we decide to have a pity party about how bad it happens, we all have those. I have those in the coaching business. I'm sure you have them in the insurance business. You're going to just have bad days. Yet if we stay there and we don't keep moving forward, we're going to miss out on the opportunities that are coming across right in front of us.
Makes sense. Do you have any, to kind of piggyback on that, do you have any activities or like daily activities that you do constantly, or that you would recommend as far, or to kind of get you out of that, or just activities, not only well in business, but also kind of, you mentioned family as well, but what would you say would be some activities to kind of get out of that?
Yeah, I have a personal thing that I actually submit with my coach daily that we look at different aspects in our relationships and our improvement, in our fitness and also in our business, the economic part of it. And, I have a list of 10 things that if I hit those things every single day, no matter what's happened in my business, I've still won the day.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it doesn't necessarily have to always relate to the business, though that's an important part. And our finances are, typically come from that. Yet it's also our relationships with our spouse and with, in my case, with my kids. And,
Yeah.
am I going to the gym every day? Because if I'm not healthy, then I can't help more people because I'm always sick and low energy and whatever the case may be. So, what are those things each day? I'd encourage, if you're listening to this, just create a list around different types of relationships, improvement. Mine's to watch a YouTube video each day on a certain topic. Mine's also to do a Bible study each and every day. And so, list those things out and then give yourself a grade each day. If you have a coach, which I would encourage, get your coach involved with it and send that to them every day so that they too can make sure that you're doing those things that you say are the most important things in your life.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that that's very important, having that checklist, and know, because sometimes you're doing a lot of activity, but then at the end of the day, you still feel like, you didn't, it wasn't a win. And I think having that checklist, that's very important. So thank you for sharing that. And as far as I know you're specializing in real estate. what do you think is the one question that most real estate ask you?
Where do I find leads? So that's the number one question. If you're in a sales business, that should be your number one question.
Sales leader.
Uh, yeah, it's leads, and I would say leads. Yet I would be careful with just putting the emphasis on that because lead generation is great. It's the fuel. Yet the business is typically found in the follow up. So if you're lead generating and you're not following up, you're probably losing a lot of the opportunities that are presented to you. So I would say going out and finding leads. What are some different lead generation sources? And there's a million different types. And it really comes down to what you're comfortable with. More importantly, though, what you'll commit to. And so, like some coaching clients, they love going door knocking. It's old school. You hear a lot of people say, "Oh, door knocking doesn't work." It works. I've had clients that make a lot of money, and that's all they do is door knock. Yet they're comfortable with that. I'm not going to coach somebody that's uncomfortable with door knocking and door knocking. We're going to go look at something else that you're going to 100% commit to. Because if you're not going to commit to it, it doesn't matter what the lead generation source is, you're not going to have any leads.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I like that approach. Just depends on what the client is comfortable with. And I mean, knowing what you know now, and as far as someone that is successful, you see someone, well, this person is succeeding, and then you see, well, why am I not? Or vice versa. What would you say would be that difference? What would you say it would take? Is it just working a lot? What would you say in your opinion?
It's not always about working more, it's about working smarter. The biggest difference I would say is, first of all, it starts with a calendar. You look at somebody that's highly successful, they're following a calendar that is in alignment with the goals that they want to achieve. You look at somebody that's not having success, 9 times out of 10, you're going to ask them, they have no calendar whatsoever. So, the first thing I would say is having a schedule. Second thing I would say, follow the schedule. And the third thing is I would say is be consistent in the area of lead generation. It's day in, day out. What I see a lot in real estate is I call it the peak and valley or the roller coaster business where they're doing this number here and they get really, really busy. They might have 6, 7 transactions going on and they're so focused working in the business that they're not working on it. So when they get done with those 7 transactions, they look up and they don't see anything in the pipeline. And so it's that consistency of lead generating every single day. And it's just time on task over time. It's not, there's not a magic pill. There's not anything out there that, I'm going to tell you that's going to be different than what already exists. It's out there. It's just being consistent and also being accountable to that time on task over time. And if you do that, it's amazing how it fills in all the holes, or it's amazing how it takes that agent that might have been closing, $1 million, $2 million in volume a year, and they go to 3, 4, 5 million the next year. I worked with an agent that came right out of the education sector and went from, making enough money in the summer to replace her entire salary just in a summer working with me to 5 years later where she closed almost $900,000 in gross commission income.
Wow, that's
And
awesome.
and when we talk about it, she says it's just doing what we coached on and just spending time on task over time. And if it's not going to happen, you can't microwave the business. And so, you've got to constantly work at it. And the small wins, we were talking about wins earlier, the small wins over time add up to big wins.
Great. Well, thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate your time today. I just want to thank you today. Now, if someone wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Sure. You can find me if you go to my website. It's redhawkcoaching.com. I have all my coaching services listed out there. I have it broken down in the price so you can see that as well. I'm pretty transparent with my business. One of the unique things about my coaching programs, I have no long-term contracts. And so we just go month to month in any one of those sectors. So I'm a little bit different than some of the big box coaching that's out there. I'm very individualized to my clients and what their specific needs are. And so they can find me at the website. They can pick up the phone and call me at 281-387-7689. You're not going to get my secretary. You're going to get me. And so if you've got any specific questions about how coaching might be able to help your business, I'd love to set up a time where we can jump on a Zoom call and we can discuss that and how coaching may or may not be a fit in your business. There's times I've talked to people, I might not be the fit, but I know a coach in the industry that they might be a better fit. So, I really want to make sure that the clients that I get into business to, that it's the right match, and in the end that they ultimately win. If they win, we all win.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, thank you, Jeremy, today, and thank you everyone for here on the show with Coffee with Sal, and I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Appreciate the opportunity, Salvador, and
Sure.
look forward to hearing from any of those that may need some help.
Yeah, thank you so much.